Good evening, afternoon, night, whenever you find it most convenient to listen to the Bonfire. I, as always, am Alan the Pole with a goal, and that goal is to get a job. It's filling out applications it's a lot, and I was literally up until 3 a.m. yesterday finishing some. I am, as always, joined by my lovely, jubbly co-hosts, DJ.
I've offered him a job collecting the gator poop, but he's refused it.
Yeah, no, I'd like something more music-related. And Tim.
Obla-dee, obla-da, Alan, go. Okay, I'm not going to do the rest because I think we might actually have a copyright issue, but Alan needs to go get a job.
I'm trying my darndest. This economy, am I right, guys?
Adulting sucks.
Adulting, yeah, it's adulting. But we do have stuff to rejoice about. We have a lot of good stuff to talk about. But before we get into that, a few pieces of news. First off, the U.S. men's Olympic squad, not the other team. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the U.S. Olympic team. Their squad announcement should be forthcoming in the next few days. Will we see a possible Brian Gutierrez and Chris Brady call-up as players, to either start or just to be there as second or third string?
And just as a reminder, because the Olympics is not considered a senior tournament on the men's side, teams are under no obligation to release players, so there's negotiation that has to happen. Other thing worth saying is Marko Mitrovic, the head coach of the U.S., I guess U23 / Olympic team, whatever you want to call it, is a former Chicago Fire assistant, was a fire assistant from 2016 to 2019.
Oh, wow. Yeah, maybe you can get a word in, especially since, what was it, when both Brady and Guti were called up at one point and the Fire were like, no.
Yeah,
and they
so
didn't allow it.
The issue during the sort of like pre-tournament camp was that neither was asked to be called up, not that the Fire denied them. So just to set the record completely straight about that. We don't know. It doesn't seem like either of them was really that high in favor. And then the question is also, Olympic rosters are very small, like ridiculously small for this day and age. Teams can bring alternates that can play if something happens, but like otherwise they're not really on the roster. So the question is if the Fire would release. Sorry.
For reference, it's 18 players.
Yeah,
that are getting
tiny.
called up.
It is but then they can bring additional players. I think 4 additionals as sort of like reserves. So they travel with the team. They go. If the team wins a medal, they would not win a medal unless they were brought in, in time to actually play. And so like it's always like sure, we'll let some teams would say like we'll let so and so go if they're going to play, but like if they're just going to be a reserve, we're not going to do that. So that would be part of the negotiations as well. But that's assuming they're going on. It would seem just likely based on reading the tea leaves and stuff like that both Fire players would not be called up. If one was, it's overwhelmingly likely to be Brady. The question is if he would be the first or second choice goalkeeper, in which case he'd be on the squad, or the third, in which case he's a reserve. And then it's like, is it better for Brady? Is it better for the Fire? Is it better for anyone to have him not play and not even be technically on the team in Paris or starting for the Chicago Fire?
Yeah, so many things to think about, I guess. Personally thinking, if Brady, if I had to choose one person to go, it'd probably be Brady, honestly. Even though he has been sort of like the MVP of our season, I feel like our goalkeepers are, we have decent goalkeepers, and honestly more than decent. So if I had to choose one, I'd probably send Brady, but that's just a matter of opinion. Don't come at me.
Yeah, I just think that he's the more likely of the two to get called up. Gagas Lunin is also very likely. I mean, almost certainly going to be one of the two goalkeepers.
Yeah, so why not? I mean,
and it is worth noting that if Brady leaves, we get Spencer Ritchie playing all the games. That's about it.
All right. So a little bit of outside of the Fire, but still Fire related. Lawrence Wooten, who was our 64th overall this year MLS Super Draft pick. He scored his first professional goal for the Indy 11, where he's currently on loan. He opened the scoring in the 20th minute against Rhode Island, and then 8 minutes later, a very familiar name also scored. Elliot Collier, he also scored in that game. And also, fun fact, former Fire Academy player Cam Lindley featured as well. So a lot of fire on that Indy side.
And something else familiar for Fire fans, that match started off with 2 goals by Indy and ended up a 3-3 draw because of a second half stoppage time goal that took the win away from Indy 11.
That does sound familiar.
I will say, I remember, I have 2 things to say this. I remember a few years ago when Cam Lindley was the big thing in Chicago Fire Academy, and then he just wasn't. He got traded away. But also, Wooten, it's going to be interesting to see because Wooten is technically on an option for next year, and realistically, he probably occupies the slot that would have gone to Glasgow.
Well, right now he's in slot 31, so he wouldn't have been eligible to play. But yeah, the team needs to figure out how to roster players like Glasgow that they believe in, where, like, frankly, like, it seems like they're kind of plateauing. Like, they've done what they can really do. I mean, not in terms of like winning trophies and stuff like that, but like in terms of development at MLS Next Pro. So team needs to figure out ways to move people on. We'll talk about transfers in an episode soon. The transfer window's opening in under 2 weeks from the time that you guys are hearing this. So
Ooh. Love transfer windows. Those are fun always.
One of my favorite kinds of window. Yeah. I also like those windows that they have in Europe where when you have the handle to the horizontal side, it opens it all the way. But if you put it upwards, it opens like just the top part for ventilation. I like those windows too. Anyways, Xherdan Shaqiri, our favorite Swiss guy, depending on who you ask. You guys in the future, we don't know. You guys probably do. What the result of the England-Switzerland game is. If Switzerland beat England, they beat Gareth Southgate's England, they are going to advance, of course, to the next round, I believe the semifinals, and they would play on Wednesday, July 10th. If they don't win, Shaqiri would be eligible to play, could possibly be back at Soldier Field July 13th if he comes back. And we don't know if he's coming back at this point. He I think deliberately looked behind him and tried to burn the bridge that he arrived on by publicly criticizing Georg Heitz. I don't know how successful that's going to be. I know that he and his agent have been working for moves. The Fire would let him go without a transfer fee, but wherever he goes, he will not be making nearly the salary, and that's a factor. We'll get into this in more depth soon, but there were reported changes to the MLS kind of like roster rules and stuff like that included a second buyout. Owners voted in favor of them, so it's not a question of MLS wanting to do it, but it involves negotiations with the Players Association. My understanding is that's been kind of a sticking point, and so far there have been no official announcements from MLS that those are going to be enacted. Obviously, you need to have the rules in place by the time the transfer window opens. So without that, there is no second buyout. The Fire did use their first buyout because it's a related party transaction to send Kasper Schmeichel to Switzerland. And so we can't send other players to Lugano this season unless it's a loan, and Shaqiri makes too much money for it to be a loan that would work for them. So basically it's up to Shaqiri and his agent to sort of find a club that they like, that would work, and to accept a salary that would certainly be a pay cut.
At this point, it kind of feels like, in all honesty, this just is a mutual termination. It has to be. Because it's not even a case anymore of the Fire want to get something. I mean, you could probably offer a box of matches and the Fire would accept it for Shaqiri. But and there's nothing. There's no desire from Shaqiri or from the Fire to reunite. At this point, it has to be mutual. I can't see it not happening.
So the thing is, a mutual termination under the league's rules has to mean that no money is sent to Shaqiri, and that's the issue. More than anything else, he could find a new club and sign with whoever, and the Fire would let him go. The Fire are not expecting a transfer fee out of this. It's a question of if he goes to Switzerland, like $1 million salary, something in that range would probably like make him the best paid player on the squad in pretty much any club in Switzerland. Maybe like a little bit higher than that, but I mean, and that is an eighth of what he's making. So right now, as it stands, Shaqiri is scheduled to make about $4 million between now and the end of the year. Now, like Turkey is another option. I think the team has been looking at like Saudi Arabia as an option. Shaqiri hasn't, as far as I know, expressed any interest in going to Saudi Arabia, nor has anyone in Saudi expressed solid interest in him. But Saudi Arabia and Turkey would both be options that could pay more than Switzerland. Shaqiri did talk up Turkey, but like he would be making if he went to Turkey, he would be making, a fraction of what he's making now. And so he would potentially go from making like $8 million plus this season to making like the 4 that he's made plus like another 1. And so the question is, would he rather come to Chicago, maybe play, maybe not, like maybe that's not relevant, and get a $4 million paycheck, or go and make $3 million or something like that less this year? I mean, I don't know. And, like that, but that would be a factor.
I just now remembered that technically the name of like that Turkey wants people, the English speakers, to refer to as Turkiya. How do you say it again?
Turkiya. Yeah, it's the same.
Turkiya.
It's the same word in Turkish. Yeah,
it's that they want to distinguish themselves from the animal turkey, and so instead use the Turkish word. I just now remember that. Okay.
Yeah, they wanted us to quit calling it Turkey cold turkey, which is probably part of why they wanted to change the name.
All right,
but that requires me to recognize the Turkish.
Oh boy.
Okay.
We're not going to get into what name DJ thinks that Istanbul is called.
It's all called
pizza. All right. Before this podcast gets sanctioned by the Turkish government or the
we do have one other transfer news, or one rumor that's going around.
Yes, and that it's one that's been going around for a hot minute, and that is Gaston Jimenez.
Reports saying that he might be on his way to Vélez Sarsfield, which is the team he was at before. But of course, we have the yearly or windowly Jimenez to Boca, which the president of Boca seems to really like Gaston Jimenez, but this has been going on for like 6 windows now.
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time that he was linked to one of those two clubs, either return to Velez or going to Boca Juniors, I would have like 9 nickels, which like isn't a lot, but it does make you think.
That is a decent amount.
Tim,
of nickels.
That's basically my tweet. God dang it!
All right, yeah, no. So transfer windows. Can't wait for that to officially happen. All right, let's talk about, of course, the big thing that happened right before the 4th of July, and that is the game against the Philadelphia Union. For the second time this season, the Fire have come back 1-3 in the 80th minute to win 4-3. Wow, first of all, I mentioned when Joe Chats tweeted about this, I commented saying that I was really disappointed that I had to miss out on the Montreal game where the first one happened. Of course, that one was epic because the last goal was assisted by Chris Brady in the wind. This one was just mental, honestly. So a decent amount of things to talk about when it comes to this game. And I think the first thing that we can start off with is that the Chicago Fire have a player of the match day for the first time since 2020, and John Duran in Hugo Kuipers for his brace. He makes the team of the match day, of course, because of that. And Marin Haile Selassie, who also scored, made the team of the match day bench.
And I think both deserved it. It was just a great, it was the kind of performance that I think Fire fans wanted to see from Hugo. Like it is like he is the striker who has been promised, finally at long last. Mm-hmm. 6 goals in the past 6 games. Like you can't you can't argue with that level of production. Like he's already surpassed the team's record goal scorer last season. Like like it's what you want, right? Like a guy scoring a goal a game over 20% of a season is like more or less like the most you can expect from any one guy. But man, Marin was just flying. Like he was responsible for so much of the team's offensive output in that match. And it is just like, it's like he found a home and he loved it so much that he moved in and is more or less permanently inhabiting this new role, which just looks like it's working out really well for him.
I love that analogy. I love that for him. A lot of good things happened there. Of course, there were a few negative things that happened, which resulted in, of course, truly a really, this was, if you were at Soldier Field that night, emotions were everywhere on all sides of the spectrum. We were mad, we were happy, we were sad, we were crying. I was yelling what was going on at the very end. In the beginning.
Were we talking about your prom night or match?
No, prom, I was just crying all night. Anyways.
I was about to say.
Well, the Fire were the ones that ended up striking first, which was Marin Haile-Selassie. Of course, it was around the 38th minute. Before that, there was a goal from Philly that was called offsides almost immediately. And then the Philadelphia Union did have a equalizing goal in Chris Donovan about 8 minutes later to make it 1-1. And then going into halftime, we all thought it would be 1-1 until Chris Brady did it to himself, essentially. For the third game in a row, the Fire have conceded a penalty kick. All the previous times, it's usually been someone in that defensive line, but this time it was Chris Brady himself. So 4 PKs in the last 3, all of which resulted in goals. Tim, you can definitely explain what happened.
Well, you can't like basically have the ball in your breadbasket, drop it, and then instead of going for the ball, rugby tackle a guy trying to get to the ball. Like that's what's crazy to me. Is like 3 of these 4 PKs have been legitimate like rugby plays. Like it is like trying to haul a guy down from behind. Like it just is like stuff you can't do, and certainly stuff you can't do in the box. And I don't just mean that like in MLS. Like I mean like this is the kind of stuff that like gets called in rec league all of the time. But like in a league with a VAR, like this took a VAR review for reasons that are not really in my comprehension. Like I guess there's an argument that like maybe VAR makes you not make the call real time because you don't trust your eyes or something. But like it was pretty obvious, you know? And you can't rugby tackle a guy, Chris.
I think the call there for VAR, the problem was just whether it was in the box or not.
The Arai, our resident referee in Men in Red, one thing he was very adamant and very vocal about was the amount of time it considered, the amount of time it consumed. Normally, when you go to, he said that when you go to VAR, it's, you know, and that you have the referee to look, it has to be like clear and obvious or something like that. And that if it's taking this long, it's not clear and obvious. Like that, essentially, it took way too much time than it should have. But all's the same, it resulted in another conceded penalty to make it 1-2 to the Union right at halftime.
I mean, I agree with that in a way, but like the problem is like I used to have a really like very strict editor like back when I was like first out of college and like writing for a living, and she was old school and like would like give me things with like, you know, red pen and like notes. If I said clear and obvious, if I ever wrote that, I just, every time I hear that phrase, I imagine her sitting the draft back to me and being like, to who? Like to whom and from where? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, is it clear and obvious if the ref had been looking a different direction or in a different place? Because like that can take some time to review legitimately. But is it clear and obvious if you take a casual glance at it from where you were again? Like, I mean, you know, it just is such an it just is such like a meaningless phrase when push comes to shove that I think what it encourages every referee to come up with their own definition of it. And So you get things like that take forever. But I mean, by the laws of the game, if it had been called initially, there is absolutely zero question about it being the right call.
Yeah. When you because from the end where I was sitting, supporter section, this happened on the north end of the stadium, so it was hard to see what was going on. When you replayed it through the highlights, even the commentators said, yeah, that is a penalty, and so they ended up calling it.
Now, the one thing I will say in addition to that is that when you look at the play, there weren't a lot of bodies that were behind Chris Brady when he made the tackle, which may have been part of why. Now, like, again, I keep on arguing, like, nothing is a higher percentage goal than like a shot from the spot. So you might as well let it go. Like, I get the emotions, but like, you have to be smart. Like, you're a professional athlete, you're paid to do this. But Jonathan Dean was kind of like running in behind, and it looked like he would have been able to get to the ball before anyone, I mean, basically before anyone else. And so it would have been, pretty easily cleared, I think, at that point. It does sort of, it's one of those things like nobody really thought Jonathan Dean really should be like a starting player in MLS this year. He's been a starting player for the Fire because of injuries for a lot of matches. And I think that the downside of that is that I think that it's made the team feel like there's a weakness they got to cover up for at some points. And I think that was probably in the back of Brady's head. And it's also given opposition teams something they think they can exploit. And like, that's not a criticism of Jonathan Dean, who I think has played a lot better than anyone can be asking from him. And I think that he has upped his game in the 2 seasons he's been in MLS, but like it's a limited game, right? Like he's not Andrew Gutman. He's not even, like Chase Gasper, who had a career bump, but was before that considered a top prospect at his position. And again, like that's not a criticism. He's playing on the wrong side. Like like a bunch of things are not ideal for what's going on, but it seems like it's a vulnerability. And I think that is one the Fire probably will be addressing with a tactical or formation switch against San Jose.
Yeah. Well, we did see in the beginning of the second half a sub in for Chris Mueller out Jonathan Dean. Yes.
One thing I also want to say, I saw this on Reddit.
Oh dear.
Apparently there are people that are getting angry at Chris Brady for not saving a penalty.
It's hard.
It is, to put in perspective, the only person, someone kind of put it this way, there are a handful of keepers that you want standing on the opposite side of the penalty kick. I love Chris Brady, but he's not Nick Rimando. That's it. For a penalty, it's basically as much, if not more, about the guy taking the kick than it is about the keeper. The keeper can get lucky. The guy taking it has to put in the work.
True. Yeah, no. And I play goalkeeper in the rec league that I play every week, and I like I'll let people do free kicks and like penalties as well. Those things are hard to save, honestly. You just never know what direction it's going to go, whether it's going to go high, whether it's going to go low, where you have to save it. So PKs are hard. So, I don't have anything against Brady for that, but he does have to be careful not to do another rugby tackle, essentially. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's rough. Like, but when you look at it, like, so the Fire have allowed more penalty shot attempts than any other team in MLS at this point. But like the right behind us, ironically, or not necessarily ironically, like it makes sense, is San Jose. They haven't saved a penalty kick this season between their 2 goalies. Like Montreal have 5 penalty kick attempts against. They haven't saved the penalty kick. Like I get that it's been going on for Brady for a couple of seasons, but like it does really just come down to luck and numbers, and like that's it. Like the one thing you could maybe potentially argue is that like maybe he and Zach Thornton, the goalkeeping coach, should be like studying things a little bit more. But like honestly, there just isn't that much footage on like a lot of these guys taking PKs because it doesn't happen that often. And like just because the guy went like low corner on the left the past 2 times doesn't mean he's going to do it the third. So like I don't really know what you wanted to do. Like Chris Brady can stop balls coming to the net. We know that. Like he's going to stop balls coming to the net. Like it's going to happen on a penalty kick sooner or later. Like there's real problems in this world, but this isn't really one of them.
Yeah, not every goalkeeper can be the German guy in 2006 with his sock.
Okay, but here's my thing: is like that guy couldn't be that guy a week later. You know what I mean? Like it just
exactly.
It is just like the winds of the gods, something like magic in the air. Like I don't know what it, but like it ultimately is almost random, which is the complaint about PKs is that like really at most. Sorry, go ahead.
They're just rolling dice to see what happens.
It's not even rolling dice. It's like rolling dice where it's like if the dice ends up in like one specific hole on the table, then it doesn't count. But other than that, whatever you roll, it counts. Like that's the problem with PKs. Like more than anything else, it's like legitimately, I think that it was Nathan Harriel that was brought down by Brady rugby tackling him. Maybe he should look into playing a different sport, although he wouldn't be allowed to as a professional. But like I think Nathan Harriel, had like maybe a 30 to 40% chance of getting a goal from that. I don't think any other Union players really did. I think it would have been a clearance out of the box and a recycle after that. And so to say that this thing that was maybe a 30, 40% chance becomes basically a certain goal, or like 0.75 XG if you want to be technical about like what it's weighted as, even though that it's low. It just seems like the punishment is worse than the crime.
Yeah. All right. I feel like we can talk about penalties till the cows come home. So
let's just hope we don't have to again.
Amen. I say to that. Like we mentioned, 4 PKs in the last 3 matches. It's been the defensive line and Brady. So, everyone's got to take a long look in the mirror and be like, stop it. Get some help. Hi, I'm Michael Jordan.
Get your stuff together yourself.
Okay. Second half, as I mentioned, Jonathan Dean came on, Chris came out, Chris Mueller came on, and Jack McGlynn hits essentially, as the Philadelphia Union said, another double doink, hit both posts before going in to make it 1-3 for the Union. A few minutes later, Chris Mueller had himself a really nice shot from right side, and it ended up going in. We thought the comeback was coming on until another long and lengthy VAR check, to which the referee said that, I think he said Marin Haile Selassie was in an offside position. I even after watching the replay, do not completely understand how it was offside.
So
if you could explain it.
Marin was offside when the initial play started. Mm-hmm. Then the question becomes whether or not in sort of like the scrum of like 6 bodies. Yeah, I know. Lots of rugby going on. 6 bodies. If the cross into the box went off a Union player, which would have reset things before Marin received it. It's very difficult to tell. I looked at it as closely as I could. I couldn't come up with anything definitive.
For reference, it was Kuipers was the player that officially the pass came off of Kuipers. Hence why it was recalled back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, it was on the other end of the stadium, so it was just really hard to see even in the replay. So that goal was waved off. And honestly, Arai, when Chris Mueller was subbed in, Arai was like, he's not going to score. And then he turns to me, he's like, he's going to score just because I said that. And then he does, and then it gets called off. So then we had a few other substitutions that kind of had us questioning, what is Frank doing? We had Gaston Jimenez coming in for Alan Aragoni. We also had Tom Barlow coming in for Kellen Acosta. And it was around that 70th minute where we've noticed that we went back to what I essentially called prime Frank Klopas ball. This is the system and the way that Frank had the team playing when he started out. Kind of different from the 3 in the back sort of thing and less possession based. It was entirely possession based and a lot of crosses going in and just getting headed out. And that was when I
So
was
he
kind of getting nervous.
he did speak about this after the match, where he said that they basically went to a back four. So you were right about
Yes.
that. Like, it was back to a back four. I think that after a while, the back four functionally became a back three, and the team started playing it of a 3-4-3 again. But the idea was to basically get Brian, according to Frank Lopez, get Brian Gutierrez into a more direct playmaking or second forward position, rotating with Marin, and then Barlow, like you're bringing in another forward. Like, I don't know. We can talk about Barlow's performance later, but I don't know, man.
But what we can talk about is how, like I mentioned, we sort of went back to this sort of prime Klopas ball where a lot of the attempts are in the air or like crosses are made in. 81st minute, I think this was like one of the, I can't remember which corner kick this was. There wasn't a corner kick until the 70th something minute. Like, there were just virtually no corners, and then all of a sudden the Fire started having a few corners.
It was all corners all the time. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, and after that moment, it was played short. Marin Haile Selassie just launches it forward. It gets bonked in the air.
The short was Marin took the corner to Guti, very like kicked it to Guti, who just kicked it immediately back to Marin Haile Selassie, basically to create a little bit more space.
Yes,
but it was like literally like the shortest. Like, it is like a tap. It is like
that's why I didn't notice. Yeah. Well, like I said, hard to see from the opposite side of the stadium. Ball is tapped up, and normally in Fireland, when the ball is in the air, usually it'll get headed out or it will fall in front of a Union player. Instead, you have Hugo Kuipers just towering into the air, almost in a very similar way of rugby, like climbing on the back of a Union player and just heading the ball into the back of the corner to make it 2-1. All the Fire players were running to the center circle, and I was like, is a comeback possible? And I kept thinking back to a few years ago when the Fire played the Union, and it ended up being a 3-3 draw. And I was like, this isn't...
You mean 3-2, right?
Less 2-3. Yes, I was just saying that I was thinking back to, at the moment, I was thinking back to the game a few years ago that finished 3-3, in where the Fire did have a comeback from down, but they ended up making it 3-3. But I was like, maybe there can be at least a 3-3 final result sort of comeback.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of goal that you want from a guy like Kuipers. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, he made it look easy. It's not easy. It's why you're paying the guy. Exactly.
And then a few minutes later, in the 88th minute, you had a little bit of playing outside the box, very common to like what I've been saying. I think it was a chip from Herbers, and once again, the ball is just headed up. And both for this goal and the next goal, the Union players just froze and like realized like how many Fire players are left unmarked. And for this one, it was Gaston Jimenez, who saw the ball coming to him. No one was around to challenge him, and just bap in as it fell into the back of the net. Like, the Union players were just stunned as he left-footed bounced into the back of the net to make it tie game 3-3 in the 89th minute.
It's also worth saying another short corner. And Fabian Herbers was involved in the build-up. Rafa was in the box, and like Gaston, the ball is in the air. And Gaston doesn't try to settle it. He doesn't try to get the ball at his feet. Like, he just hits the ball in the air. And like, there's basically no way to hit it other than the way that he hit it that would have resulted in a goal.
No, literally. And then not even a few minutes later, 92nd minute, you had a chip into the box. Marin Haile Selassie with the first touch immediately puts the ball once again into the air. Again, it seemed like the Union players just froze, not knowing like who to mark, or just slowed down, and the ball just perfectly fell in front of Hugo Kuipers, who just jumped, tapped it with his right foot. It went underneath the Union goalkeeper for the comeback of the ages to make it 4-3.
So it's worth saying that ball, so Guti lobbed the ball into Marin, who didn't, again, like, that ball was hit in the air. Like,
Yep.
it had to be hit perfectly, or like that play doesn't happen. So another ball in the air, no settling it, no second touch. Like really just like the one, like not like really, just like literally just one touch that had to be perfectly hit and perfectly weighted to get it to Hugo Kuipers, who was streaming into the box. There were other Fire players that were going into the box at that point. So like if Kuipers didn't score it there, like there's still a chance of there being a garbage goal, which counts the same. And I do want to give the Fire credit for that, because something that we didn't see from the team really for years was like players crashing into the box and like a willingness or an expectation to get those garbage goals. And so it was good to see, even if it wasn't necessary here, because like for the first time with Hugo Kuipers, like the Fire have a player who has the skill so that they don't need garbage goals. They can get like non-garbage goals instead.
Exactly.
But it's still like good to have backup plans.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm pretty sure in that in the Kuipers goal at the very end that Tom Barlow was like right behind him or right to his side. So if there was like a rebound from the goalkeeper, he could have possibly tapped it in. To close out the match, more craziness happened. One which saw Frank Klopas getting a red card. He got furious over a foul that happened like right in front of him, and he got sent off. And as he was walking away, you could see him hyping up the crowd. And man, the crowd was hyped up right until the very end.
So he technically got sent off for entering the field of play.
Yeah, but he was mad though because of what we saw. That's why he had to. He just had to do it to him.
Yeah, and he was asked about it post-match. Alex Calabrese, the Men in Red editor-in-chief, was the guy that had to broach the conversation. He played it down, which like you're not going to play it up when you're missing a match for a suspension, because like, of course you're going to downplay it. But what he said, that he's an emotional person. He feel like he really got into it a little bit, but he didn't intend to enter the field of play. He just did. He was upset. The reason he was upset was just, he said, I think for me, the referee with every goal kick, there were 17 to 25 seconds. And for me, it's about speeding up, give a yellow card and push the game. And I was following the play and stepped on the field. I took one or two steps I didn't realize. And that's basically that.
Yeah. So he just got emotions out of him. Yeah.
Frank Klopas and red cards during a win, like name a more classic MLS combination.
I was about to say, this is what his like fifth red card he's gotten.
Love that. And then really to close off the game, there was a little bit of a controversial free kick. Amsberg had a clearance where it was all on the ball, but the referee called for a free kick basically right in front of goal. It was deflected out, which resulted in a last-minute corner, which once again was just booted out. And final whistle, 4-3 Fire win. And honestly, a really nice fireworks night afterwards. I remember previous firework nights were just honestly like meh. They weren't like a lot of cool fireworks, but this one was actually pretty nice. So these were actually really decent fireworks from the Fire and Soldier Field. So kudos. Really nice way just to end the day. So
there's another way, and this is the only time that I'm going to know something that DJ doesn't know about the Fire. Going back historically, there's another sense of these were fireworks. This was the first time that the Fire had scored 3 goals after the 80th minute since July 4th, 2001.
What say you, DJ?
Wait a second, hang on.
Okay.
All right.
He doesn't believe me.
Wait, scored 3 goals after the 80th minute?
Yes, since July 4th, 2001.
Nope.
When is the other time?
This year, March 16th. The Montreal game, remember?
Didn't the first goal happen before that?
No, it was 84th, 90 plus 5, and 90 plus 9.
Huh. Man, you're right.
Well, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim rolled his nap.
Oh, sorry. No, this is this year is the first time that they've done that since 2001. Yes. And also the first time they've won that they've overcome a 2-goal deficit since 2009. So if you want to look for the Fire getting better, I mean, the fact that they didn't overcome a 2-goal deficit between 2009 and 2024 is not a great look.
Yeah. So,
what's funny, Lopez is actually very good at comebacks, apparently.
Well, yeah.
I posted this on Twitter. The man has 16 comeback wins. The only person with more is Bob Bradley, and the next best one is Dave Strachan with 6.
So one of those things is to get a comeback win, you have to go down. Part of that's a function of the number of matches you've played, and like Frank Lopez is one of now the more tenured coaches in MLS history, just in terms of the number of matches he's been behind the bench for. But also, been down a number of times. And so you have to be down to get a comeback.
Well, with that said, though, Paunovic, I think, coached more games, I want to say, if not more, about the same. And he has 1.
No. All right. Well, I feel like
he was busy eating soup.
I feel like we can wrap up discussing this. What was honestly just a really nice day out. It was really nice weather. It was hot though. At one point, I was feeling a bit of exhaustion from the heat and just blasting my saxophone. But it was a really nice game. Really nice fireworks. So now the Fire are going to be playing on Sunday, which I'm pretty sure this is the one and only time they're playing on Sunday, if I remember correctly.
They played on Sunday they played on Easter Sunday because, of course, you schedule the match, against Atlanta United.
So this is the second Easter. It's the
second coming of Sunday games for the Fire.
Coming of Sunday games for the Fire.
On the bright side, if it's a second Easter, we don't have to worry about the playoffs this year.
Yay! Anyways, San Jose, who are in last, who are in last place, just period in all of MLS with 3 wins, 2 draws, 16 losses. For their last match against a Western Conference opponent during the regular season, this Sunday, as we mentioned, and it's a 7:30 Central kickoff. Like, we want to emphasize that this is what the kickoff is, not probably. It's 7:30 p.m. Central, because everywhere it either said TBD or just some random time. No one could figure it out. Tim was having an aneurysm about it, but it is confirmed 7:30 p.m.
because
Central.
The team confirmed it. The San Jose confirmed it. It's been confirmed. It was initially the initial listing on TBD as being the schedule. I think was the point of confusion. They took a little bit of time, like I want to say like a month or 2 into the season to confirm it. I think the thing that confused people was when it was 7:30 Central, you're like, wait, that's when they kick off in Chicago. But they're on the West Coast. So, but yeah, it's 5:30 in San Jose when it kicks off, which does mean it's going to be another hot one for the Fire. Temperature is expected to be in the 80s at kickoff, but
Yeah. Well, San Jose, they're in last place in MLS, and ever since I became like a real big fan of Major League Soccer, I can always remember people saying that San Jose is indeed the smallest club in MLS. I don't want to jinx us. I probably just did. But, I mean, hey, if you look at the record, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses in a row with a draw. Then they also lost in the Open Cup with 2 more losses on that. They haven't won since May 11th against the Colorado Rapids. So it's been a minute since they've won. Their last game that they played was a 2-0 loss to St. Louis. Before that, it was a 3-0 loss to the LA Galaxy. So they haven't been scoring goals recently as well.
And before that, it was a 6-2 loss to the San Jose Earthquakes, which cost
you mean
head coach
LAFC.
Sorry, right? LAFC, yeah. LAFC, which cost Luchi Gonzalez.
To be fair,
job.
San Jose is beating itself.
Well, the funny thing is their big signature win early in the season. So they had lost their first 4 games. They won against the Sounders when people didn't realize yet the Sounders were not that good. But that became a story where it's like, wow, they beat the Sounders. Like, that's a pretty good team. Then they lost, I want to say like another 4 games. Tied Nashville, which everyone was like, okay, whatever. Then they beat LAFC in their 11th game of this season. And like, that was a signature win. And everyone's like, wow, like they moved the match away from PayPal where they normally play to Levi Stadium where the 49ers typically play. There were more than 40,000 people there. So they were bawling out in front of a big crowd, and people were like, man, like that, maybe there is something going on, but nah.
Nah.
They won the match against the Rapids after that, and since then they've gotten 1 point against Austin.
Yeah. And
this team is on track to be one of, if not the worst teams in MLS history. The only team that is arguably the only team that you could argue maybe are worse are the original season Chivas and 2013 DC.
Yeah, both are really bad. Like earlier in the season, the Revolution were like on a speed run to be the worst team in MLS history. This year, like since the Revolution started finding a way to win games, they are no longer in that conversation. But the Earthquake has just decided to literally park the bus and losing territory. Things haven't been going well for San Jose. Like they had a good starting goalkeeper that they brought in for the 2023 season. Daniel, who's Brazilian, he's back this season. He was injured middle of March, hasn't played since. He had hamstring surgery. He will not be there on Sunday. He really did get a number of points for them, and they just haven't had the same thing with a backup. Like Christian Espinoza was brought in. He was an Argentine like winger that really was scoring a bunch of goals for them initially. He has been there, I want to say, since 2020. Really like not performing that well this year. But that's what happens. Right? Like, it's not surprising when like a team isn't winning that you've got a bunch of guys that are underperforming what you expect from them, because like that's how that happens. But like he's one of the guys that like really has been underperforming. So yeah, rough times in San Jose. I checked the betting odds thinking the Fire should be favored to win. They're not, but there's always like a huge home team bias in terms of betting odds in MLS, which like frankly isn't dumb because home teams win a ton in MLS, but it still just seems like the Fire should expect to win this one. Yeah.
Well, even though San Jose are in the state of what they are, the Fire haven't won at San Jose since 2017. That game, which finished 4-1, featuring goals from Nemanja Nikolic as well as Jordi Mihailovic, Solignac. But literally the game afterwards, where we played them in San Jose, 2019, finished in a 4-1 victory for them. And then in 2022, when we played in San Jose, a 2-1 victory for them. So once again, time to flip the script. Flip the records, I guess.
So yeah, it's interesting to say that I want to say, when was Luchi Gonzalez brought in? Was that 2022 or 2023? I would say it was 2023.
It was 2023. I remember. Yeah. I think it was because the Fire were getting linked to him with Ezra.
Yeah. So Luchi Gonzalez was a former Dallas head coach. He was he was in charge of their academy at the point that like Dallas developed their reputation as having like the best academy in MLS, or like one of the best academies in MLS, but like, and then became the head coach of the first team, made his way to San Jose. The team looked pretty good last year. They made the playoffs, and you could tell like San Jose has they haven't invested in high-end talent. But you could tell Luchi Gonzalez's ideas were starting to take hold in the squad. Like playing with possession, like not being afraid to have the ball. Like it looked like it was maybe starting to come together, and then it just really didn't this season. The sort of funny thing is Ian Russell, who was the assistant head coach, who's now their, again, interim assistant head coach, is a former Earthquakes player himself. He was a very long-term assistant with the team. He left for a little bit to coach, then he came back as an assistant. This is the second time that he's interim head coach of the team. So there's like a little bit of like Frank Klopas vibes, although like he hasn't really reached the same level. Like he's never been a full-time head coach in MLS with any club, let alone, like the Earthquakes or like Klopas had his time in Montreal. But there is like a similar, thing there. So far, it looks to me from having watched games, Ian Russell is more or less continuing the same system, which I get, because it's like you're sort of trying to like, quote unquote, like fix the airplane while it's in flight. So you don't want to completely change everything all at once. But it looks like it's basically the same team. They've, had 2 losses since then. So I'm not really sure that. I think that them firing Luchi Gonzalez was more of a case of like, you can't fire, 20 players, but you can fire one manager. So,
yeah. All right. Score predictions, gentlemen. Now, I predicted the last game to be a goal bonanza. I think I said 3-2, and it ended up finishing 4-3. I want to go in a similar direction where there's going to be goals, but I think a bit more on the Fire side. I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be a 3-0 Fire victory, personally.
Well,
this
I already wrote my.
Everyone disagrees.
I just said. I said 3-1.
Okay.
It's hard to.
Is that one going to be from a penalty again?
Oh
yes.
boy, I hope not. I mean, legitimately, penalties were the bane of this squad last year. Like, they had more penalties than any other club in MLS, or penalties against. I don't want to say like they didn't. They faced them. They didn't get the kicks themselves. It's a problem, right? Like, and yeah.
Yep. Take a hard look in the mirror and stop it. Get some help. All right.
Next time you want to rugby tackle a guy during a soccer game, here's some advice. Don't.
You want to know the most meme answer for the PK question?
Okay.
The Fire are not going to concede off of a penalty kick that was awarded against them. They're going to concede off a penalty kick because someone's going to take the kick, bounce off the crossbar, manage to get caught in the wind, and go past Brady.
Okay, we're just gonna like stop this conversation right now. Like
that would be the dumbest.
To the point of like being let's
not manifest anything.
Okay, score prediction. Come on, you've had enough time to think about it, DJ.
What's a think?
Oh boy.
No,
just
I'm gonna
say 2 numbers.
2 numbers, okay. No, but I am gonna
stop encouraging.
Why do you expect anything different? But no, I'm gonna say it's actually gonna be probably 3-0.
Okay. So 2 3-0s and a 3-1 for the Fire. Yeah.
I'm gonna say Chris Brady is gonna have a chip on his shoulder because he's not going to the Olympics, so he's gonna say, "Screw you guys! I'm having a Sean Johnson game."
Oh. Okay.
I thought you were gonna say he scored a goal, but cool. I'll take your thing too.
No, I'm gonna say, because Mueller had a pretty good game last game, I'm gonna say Mueller actually gets a goal this game.
Okay.
Mueller and Kuipers finally reaches double digits, and you know what? I'm gonna say he deserves a goal. I'm gonna say that Dean finally gets his first goal for the Fire.
Jonathan, okay, what a prediction. All right, if it happens, then go buy a lottery ticket or something.
If Dean scores a goal for the Fire, then the entire everything on Fire social media is just going to explode.
Literally, no, actually, and the Fire is just going to explode. Period. All right, gentlemen, ladies, they thems of the Fire. Thank you for listening to this. Always enjoyable time here at the Bonfire. I, as always, have been Alan, the Pull with the Goal, joined by my lovely jubbly co-hosts DJ and Tim. As always, come on, you men in red.